Coming to you from a portable microphone, this is Don't Get Me Started. This is a conversation about advertising. And here is your host, freelance creative director and creative circus department head, Dan Balser.
Guys, welcome back to another episode of the podcast.
Another episode.
Thank you, and welcome back to another episode of Don't Get Me Started. I'm your host, Dan Balser. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Thank you so much for downloading and deciding to spend the next half hour plus with me and Kervins. Kervins Chauvet. It's a French name. It's a French origin Haitian name, Chauvet. It's not Chauvet. It's not Chauvet. It's not Corvette.
No.
It's not
Chevrolet.
Nene. It's
No.
Chauvet. Mm-hmm. Kervins is pronounced like it reads. Kervins. Kervins. Kervins and I have 321 mutual connections on LinkedIn. That's more than we would have known at the same time. That's a lot of connections, Kervins. You realize that how connected you and I are? Kervins is back visiting the school, and I'm embarrassed to not be a student of my own podcast, so much to the point where I had forgotten that Kervins has visited the show before when he was here with his then creative director at RGA LA, and I think also Lionel Carrion was sitting in the room, and I completely forgot about that conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I had to go back and listen to a snippet of it at lunch. But Kervins graduated, he left Creative Circus. He got a job back in 2014. He graduated from Clark Atlanta and spent 3 years, was it 3 years? 5 years.
5 years.
Figuring out what to do, right?
Yeah.
Figuring out.
Well, I was cutting my teeth in the city.
Working for...
Patchwork.
Okay, and you also work for Verizon, is that right?
Yeah. I did 1 year. I did 1 year as a brand ambassador for Verizon Wireless.
What's that mean?
I was... That's great. That's going to be great for your audio. You hear that?
Is that noise? Oh, it's all over the audio. we don't, you know, just so you know, I don't do a lot of editing and polishing of this show. You get what my motto is you get what you pay for with DGMS. And how much did you pay for talking to the listeners? You get, so whatever happens.
I paid a lot for DGMS.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay. You paying with your soul? So what does that mean to be a Verizon brand ambassador?
Essentially you go to events. I was on an international, sorry, not international. We didn't board any boats, or planes. I was a national brand ambassador, meaning we went to, events like public events, basketball games, county fairs, stuff where, people went to in droves and set up a tent. And you know those people who try to get you to like play basketball, and we're not trying to do anything sneaky. We're not trying to get impressions on Verizon Wireless phones. We just want you to play basketball to win some prizes. That was me.
Oh yeah, it's you.
Yeah.
So,
but it gave me a chance to travel all over the country, and I mean, I'm a kid from New York. Before that, it exposes you to so many different ways of thinking and so many lifestyles and so many cultures, and I physically felt my brain expand in my mind.
Felt what?
I felt my brain expand in my skull. That's
crazy. So now you're a brand ambassador for Nike, in a way. Essentially, right?
Somewhat.
So, I have a question about that time. So, I'm sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
Well, I've only done one Nike ad. And it's barely a Nike ad. It's an equality ad, and it's very niche. It's not like a traditional sport ad, if we're being honest. So I don't know if I would say I'm a brand ambassador.
What are you mostly on now?
I'm hopping around, but I was on P&G for the last year. You're more than a year.
And you worked on the Olympic stuff, the Love Mom. Was that Olympic?
Thank You Mom.
Thank You Mom. Sorry. Yeah. Why did I say Love Mom?
Because you love her.
Yeah, that's it. So I had a question that was an interviewee type of question, which was, so how did you discover, while you're doing this sort of 5 years before you came here, how did you discover this career? Because your background reminds me a little bit of my background, which is like didn't even know you could be a professional creative, right? So how did you discover advertising in the creative circus? How did you discover from just a regular, albeit fun and cool marketing job to this? How did you find that?
Yeah. This is going to be the long answer, but you graduate from college where you had to choose a major. Right. No one ever like really talked you through that, or like told you what kind of jobs, like really told you what kind of jobs you can get with different kind of majors and what are you into. No one sat there and really, really dug to find out if you're actually doing the right thing. And the reason why that's bad is because you just choose and you're not counseled through it. And anyway, I chose marketing because it's very general. It's very applicable to a lot of different industries. I figured I can use it.
So, wait, hold on. So this was a pragmatic decision, or was something that you were interested in?
I was about to say I'm interested in what makes humans do what they do. I'm not necessarily interested in selling stuff to humans.
No, I get you. That's very cool. Yeah.
I'm interested in humans, and marketing has a very powerful influence on humans, and to have that influence we have to do a lot of human work and understand humans, and so it's very suitable. Now but I was also a musician, so I got a job at Patchwork after I graduated, and I was like, I'm in my dream job. I'm doing marketing for music. I'm good.
That's cool.
But then I kind of hit a peak, and I was like, man, if I'm going to choose marketing, I'm tired of the local, regional promotion, passing out flyers kind of marketing. Like, there's some bigger stuff happening out here. There's the quality commercials. There's Spike Lee's. There's film. There's movies.
Spike Lee, like you'd ever get to work with Spike Lee.
Yeah. Right? There's all this stuff happening. And I'm like, I just got fed up. And I quit. I hit quit on life. And I quit my job. I quit everything. And I thought about it, and the question occurred to me that I never really understood who made those things.
Right. You just had jobs at that point. They were just jobs. They weren't like something that was fulfilling a career. No. Is that right? Is that a fair way to say it?
Very, very fair.
So it ran out because it never started really anything that's kind of fired up a fire inside you.
No, yeah.
Or made you question anything, really. No,
yeah. But, I naturally just question everything. And so... I literally was questioning my whole existence at that point. And part of that was like, all right, if I want to make these things, I need to define what these things are. They're commercials, they're billboards, they're events on a national level, international level. I want to affect the world. Dare I say that? Yeah. I did want that.
That's pretty cool.
And I Googled, okay, who makes commercials? And then I found out the circus was less than half a mile away from me. So I walked here.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That is crazy. Yeah. That's very similar to that's different in many ways, but for me, I was like, literally, I was already living 2 blocks away from the school when I discovered this was something I needed to be doing. I just walked to school.
Oh, same.
Yeah, it was great. It was something. There's some stuff that you were talking about today in the presentation, and listeners, I apologize for those of you in London and Wisconsin and Washington State who weren't at the forum today to listen to what Kervins had said before we walked in here, but man, oh man, there was something in there that just really, really hit me hard. It was this component of...
so hard he forgot it.
No, he saw me looking at my piece of paper because I want to make sure that I'm saying it right. Oh, this is it. This is what you said. I love this so much. Magic is on the other side of quitting, right? The magic on the other side of quitting. Yeah. And the curiosity is what gets you to the... Talk about that, because that to me, I think, was one of the most powerful thoughts that you talked about today. Talk about that for a second so it makes sense to the listeners.
The line was, there's magic on the other side of there's magic on the other side of quitting. And essentially, man, I feel like, I was 27 when I found the circus. I literally felt like for 27 years, yes, from age 1 to 27, everything I had ever done that got a certain level of uncomfortable, just quit and did something else. And it struck me like, wait, I'm very average. I'm going to live a really average life where I just quit everything I ever do and not really see what's on the other side of that if I never challenge that feeling and face it and go past it. And that was the circus for me, man. And it's funny how it's so self-fulfilling, because I think it happened more because of that. I think I had more bouts with that because I had that awareness that that was my challenge. So I came in here, and every couple of weeks I was like, all right, this is it. Next quarter, I'm not coming in this building. And I remember the commitment. I remember the curiosity. I kept coming. And Dan is giving me the middle finger right now.
Oh, no, not intention, not intention. Shit, not intention. Just reminded me so much of. So I teach an introduction to teams class, and I make them commit to a brief, because this happens in the creative process. You get to a point where you have all these really first thoughts. It's just like if you start a new job, it's kind of exciting, and then you realize it's kind of not fulfilling. So you start a project, and you have a bunch of really fun, punny first thoughts that anyone would have, because we're creative people, so we can come up with some pretty decent stuff right away.
Yeah, rapid fire.
It's the stuff everybody would have thought of.
Yeah.
And you realize it's not very good. So you hit this sort of barren zone when your mind is solving problems, but it feels like you're failing, and it doesn't feel fulfilling, and you're not getting the dopamine hits or whatever. So what you do when you're a student is you just change your project and come up with something new. You quit and start over. So so basically what you've got, if you're allowing yourself to do that, is just a whole collection of half-baked bullshit.
Yep.
And if you don't push yourself to go through that moment of wanting to bail, you never find the compelling emotional truth.
The magic.
Yeah, the magic.
You can't even put a definition on it. It's like the magic. It's like the thing that people look at and they're like, oh, that's another level of depth I haven't seen. I haven't seen that.
I think about that in personal relationships. I think about people's marriages that fail because it got hard, and like, what would have happened if you'd survived that section? You know, what would have happened with your lives if you had evolved or mutated to something stronger?
Yeah, well, that was what I wanted to kind of like impress on my my little talk today. It was how parallel advertising in life is. Like, if you remember, one of my failed presentation titles was "Advertising is Life," and I was like, "Damn, that's depressing." And so I didn't name it that. But that was one of the sentiments I wanted to. I mean, it's all parallel. I feel like the biggest lessons I learned here. It sounds so cliche when you just say it out loud, but honestly, the biggest lessons I learned here are going to the school and learning advertising, and still today, just constantly trying to push myself, are life lessons. Like that. Like, there's magic on the other side of quitting.
Well, you said it. I've said this before, but the idea of knowing who you are and embracing the truth. And for you, it's about. And I loved another thing you said about yourself. And it's like, listeners. So Kervin starts his presentation. He's talking about like all these lessons he's learned and wanting to quit and all that. And he says, it's going to sound like I'm insecure. This is not insecurity. It's vulnerability.
Yeah.
Right. It's vulnerability.
Yeah.
And if you can ever find a way to tap into not sitting down to academically write something, but actually writing something down that came out of your heart, that's where the money's at. I don't mean money literally. That's where the good, rich stuff is.
There you go. Because it can't be duplicated. Mm-mm. You know, it's like duplicating your heartbeat.
Right.
Can't. And so it's really some serious deep stuff. Shit.
No, it's interesting though, because I think someone asked a really great question. I think someone asked the question about what happens on. Oh, this was Jonathan Friedman asked the question. What about brands that you don't have a heart for, feeling for? What do you come up against that? How do you handle that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna tell you just like I told him. Find the heart for it, because where you find that heart is where other people will find heart for the thing that you put out into the world, and essentially that's your job. There
is some great advertising that doesn't take the brand as seriously as the truth associated with the brand. In other words, you told a story about someone at Wieden and Kennedy that ran into Dan in the hall and said, "I don't care about this product." Yeah. And Dan said, "Well, you're the perfect person to work on it because nobody cares about it."
Exactly.
Right. So then you end up finding something that will resonate with others. Right?
Exactly. Because if you can care about it, then other people will care about it. But it's hard to get there. It's really hard to get yourself there. It feels like you're trying to brainwash yourself, and you're not. You're just trying to find out, like, why do I really care about Pampers? Or, Charmin, toilet paper? Like, why do I care? Mm-hmm. And you do. You start to go into the area of, shit, if I didn't have Charmin.
Right.
Oh, Charmin is soft. Shit, imagine if I had some really rough toilet paper, it wouldn't be good.
Right.
And then you really start to dig by doing your own kind of like investigative work about, like, why do you care about this stuff?
And find it.
Yeah. Now, I think it's a misunderstanding of vulnerability to think that anytime it comes out, that it's supposed to be like serious and emotional and blah, blah. I think vulnerability on Charmin might be like, I don't even want to go there. That's a bad example. That was going to get bad.
Yeah, it's okay. It's all right.
But like, you can get vulnerable on Charmin and it would probably be really funny. Do you see how I just stopped myself from getting vulnerable?
Right. Well, comedy is all about vulnerability and sharing sort of the personal take on things. And it doesn't have to be, we're dancing around the fact that you're sort of so far professionally, your best example of your vulnerability was an email you wrote after another senseless, murder, and talking about what it's sort of the state of being a
like
black adult in America at this moment.
Yeah.
And it was an unedited, and you said you wrote this email. I said, you didn't write it. You wrote it down.
Yeah.
And, it's like, that's one way to be vulnerable. That's one way to observe reality and express reality. It's not the only way. And
it's not the only way.
I was talking to someone in the hall after your presentation, and who's saying like he has a really hard time with how is he going to access his vulnerability. I said, you got to access what your superpower is. That's Kervin's superpower. Now, yes, everybody should be vulnerable because that's the only way you're going to be original.
Right.
That's the only way you're going to stand out. It's the only way you're going to create in a way that feels good. Mm-hmm. But maybe there's some other truth. Maybe there's something about this guy that is not vulnerability. Mm-hmm. It's really interesting. It's really interesting sort of component to this whole conversation of how abstract it is to someone that doesn't understand it.
Yeah. I think it starts, I actually think it starts in vulnerability though, because like I heard you say something while we were having lunch. You were like, I'm an asshole. I know I'm an asshole, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's your brilliance. That's vulnerability. You have self-awareness enough to be like, get that out the way. You know who I am. Now listen to what I'm saying.
Right. I'm aware that what I'm going to say is coming from the mouth of an asshole right now. I realize I'm a dick, right? Exactly. I don't remember what I said, but it was like, it wasn't a nice thing, what I said.
And it's fine. It didn't have to be nice. It didn't have to be advertising or whatever else. Art is not nice, always nice. It's not always funny. It's not always, sometimes it's mean. Sometimes it's sappy. Sometimes it's, angry. Sometimes it's cynical as hell.
Right, that's right.
I've written some pretty cynical things. Like I can get really cynical. Cynical to me is the extreme of just emotional, and I'm pretty emotional, and you lose all perspective. It can quickly turn to cynicism.
Has that affected you badly? It's gotten in your way?
Vulnerability has never affected me badly.
Cynicism?
No, because I'm human.
Okay.
And if I were to be prodding around, like I don't know if prodding is a word, but it sounded right. If I would be prodding around, like
prodding,
yeah, that's what I said.
Prod, like prod,
I guess.
Okay, so you're poking around.
I guess.
Yeah, that's word.
If I'm prodding around, like I'm never a cynic. I'm always happy, and I'm always like I have perspective. I'm always vulnerable. I'm always nice, and I'm always
bullshit's funny.
It's bullshit. It's such bullshit. Like, yeah, it's bullshit. I like everyone. I don't have any biases. I am perfectly not prejudiced. Like, I'm human. We're all human, and we're try to be a good person. This is not permission to not be a good person, but like, be human. Like, dip in that vulnerability. That's the only way. For one, you're really actually going to be a decent anything, because you're not really facing the things. You're hiding stuff. You're not really facing
really
the stuff that.
So do you feel like you're at the absolutely right place right now professionally, the agency?
So right, it's scary. So right, it's scary because there was a movie, I can't remember the name of it right now, but where the main character gets to a perfect place, like a utopia, and he's like, but I can't stay. I got here too early.
Oh, interesting.
So I gotta go. I'm not saying I gotta go, but I'm saying that it feels like I got here so early that it's like I still have wandering eyes and ears, and I don't know if you can include this on here, but like
no, I'm not. Why not?
Well, I don't know. It just feels like
no. The reason I asked is that like it's a place that
it's so perfect for me. Like, because that email wouldn't have done what it did. It would have touched people, but it wouldn't have done what it did in the world if it wasn't at Wieden. I truly believe that wholeheartedly, and everything else. Like, it wouldn't have led to equality. It wouldn't have led to Thank You Mom being a platform for that kind of message, and all of it. Stars align in Portland. There's some juju happening in the air, and I really do feel like it's passed down somehow from like original founders.
Oh, there's absolutely no question about it.
Seriously,
there's no question about it. I don't even need to elaborate.
It's so human. Mm-hmm. It's such a human place, like, and that makes it imperfect at times. But then it makes it perfect at other times, and then it makes it in the middle and at other times, and it's just all over the place, just like human.
So for the listeners, for the context who didn't do their homework, so Kervins sent out this email agency-wide after this murder. That really Alton Sterling.
Yeah.
And it expressed sort of a view of one black man's reality. And it was an incredibly powerful expression. And it didn't fall quietly. It fell and was lifted and illuminated and ignited and became a piece of creative for Nike. And then it informed in many ways the work that was done for Procter & Gamble. And do you think that there was any pushback or odd sort of discomfort from the clients that were moving that way, or was it just true?
No.
Okay,
I'm going to tell you why, because again, I feel like stars aligned when for all those things to happen. You know exactly how they happened. I think that's also the power in listening to your heart, because somehow our hearts know what else is going on around us in the world.
Oh, that's interesting, right?
And
that's
it's like, okay, it's time. Write the damn email. Send it. If you don't, you're kind of slowing it down.
That's great.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you're kind of slowing down the process here. There's something else. There's another hand moving in and all through this. And so, like, I feel like, I truly believe that whatever we call it, different people call it different things from different places. But I feel like, its conduit to us is our hearts and our, like, what we feel, our instincts. That's what it is. Our instincts, instinctual kind of like flash of whatever. And we have to listen because it's a part of a bigger narrative. And it sounds big and lofty and like, God damn, I gotta stop listening to this podcast right now. But like,
I don't care if people stop listening.
But it's like, it's true, man. Like, you gotta listen to that stuff, especially in advertising, because we have a stage, we have a platform. Millions of dollars are put into brands wanting to connect with people.
This is the thing that Wieden and Kennedy has always done. Wieden and Kennedy doesn't really care about the convention of a category. They want to do something that's going to resonate in that time and space. And when Nike started Just Do It, whenever it was, the late 80s, advertising for shoes showed cross-sections of shoes and talked about polyurethane insoles. They were the first ones to say, this isn't about a shoe. This is about a commitment to yourself and human potential. And this isn't about the brand. This is about the brand being something bigger than just the products it sells. And there's no argument from a Procter & Gamble position that you're going to celebrate, your mother and your life and who made you, who got you there. And it's just the reason I'm assuming that there wasn't pushback is because it was right for its time and honest.
Yeah, exactly. So it was right for the time. I think given another time, maybe when I was attending the circus, I don't know if the world would have been ready for equality and the reason and blah blah. Like, maybe not, maybe so. Who's to say? But like, I feel like stars aligned, and it was like I was one of those stars that needed to align in order for this thing to kind of happen.
It's really interesting to me. Really interesting.
Yeah.
So what has been I really don't want to throw an agency under the bus, but we're talking about this as if it's utopia, nirvana. What are the frustrations of the job and what's the frustrations of the career so far?
Everyone's good. Everyone's great. Dare I say, everyone's better than you.
Interesting.
And you gotta, it's part of the process, because you kind of have to, they're better than you in a lot of ways, probably most ways, but not better than you in the most powerful ways that are relevant to you. And if you just stick to that, you're golden. You're good. We all can coexist together and make art, but as soon as people start trying to be each other and do each other, then that's when it kind of becomes a dystopian kind of environment. Like, it just doesn't work,
Yeah, I'll bet. I would. This is it's a fascinating sort of sociological, psychological study to find out how many people any adults, whatever field it is, but it's acutely illuminated and then magnified, I think, in creative fields. How many of us are struggling with really understanding who we are, embracing and being comfortable with our own truth? And how many of us are struggling to conform, to do what others do? You know what I'm talking about? You know what I mean?
I would argue most of us, like, not even just most, like, so much, like, I would say, who am I to say, first of all? But I would say it's like an uncomfortably high majority, like 90%, and like maybe there's 10% of humans that we probably celebrate. Mm-hmm. They're probably the ones we celebrate, to be honest, that are like, you know what? I am who I am. And actually, more than that, who I am and who I'm not, they make me. And I'm going to give that to the world. I'm going to gift that to the world. You know, I thought a lot about, just thinking about advertising and thinking about my life. And, I chose this as a career. So this is my life, and this is my platform, and this is my craft, and this is what I intend on making an impression on the world with. Whenever I say that, I kind of take pause. Yeah, no,
I know, but it doesn't sound douchey to say that, honestly. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, but I think it's funny because I'm not the only one with my experiences. I'm the only one with the configuration of my experiences and the perception of those experiences. But
this is how advertising is supposed to work. Frankly, right. You're the one with the keyboard and the brief, speaking for others to connect with others.
Yeah. And so, I would say a lot of people don't. I would say the people that we celebrate are the people, and we don't celebrate most of humanity. We celebrate a very small minority publicly. And so, like, I would say those are the ones, though, that got it, and they're like, oh, this is what I have to give to the world, and so I'm going to give it. And then they go into that space of vulnerability. They challenge the status quo. They challenge what everyone else is thinking, and they're like, no, I'm Jesus, bitch. I can perform miracles. I'm just kidding.
I know I get it, but I had a thought queued up in my mind. I hope I can find it again. But what you have in common with the best, what your success, let's put it this way. I'm not going to say that it's you. It is you, but I'm just going to say what your success has in common with the best, any type of artist, whether it's comedians or anyone else, is the ability to be in something and step back and look at it and say something about it. And you're not just kind of in that tube going through. You can sit outside that tube and say, this is how this thing's going. And let's talk about how this thing actually works. And I think that's a gift to true creatives, to be able to observe what they're in and talk about it.
It's a great way to articulate that. And that's your gift, by the way. You know that, though.
I don't know what I know. And I will tell you, I think that the majority of people are being shunted through without the ability or curiosity to comment on it.
Yeah. No, I feel that, if I can be honest, I feel that way about life. I feel that way about life, and sometimes to the detriment of, like, oh, this was the answer to the one dude's question he asked me, has being vulnerable ever, like, kind of like backfired on me? And it's like, yeah, in relationships, in situations where people don't want to be vulnerable, and they're like, this is not the time. It's
uncomfortable, right?
Yeah, it's not the time. Like, we're at a bar. Why are you talking about existentialism? Like, no, absolutely. I'm just saying, like, it's
but that's right. And you know what I've been learning, actually, just from reading and understanding, that we are how we are, and we surround ourselves with people at Wieden, Kennedy, and the Creative Circus. But there's different types of brains, and brains are actually literally physically wired differently to see things. There are liberal brains and conservative brains. And a liberal brain sees nuance. Conservative brains very, very binary. It's a lot of people just see the nuance that you're talking about just sounds ridiculous to people. Some people,
right?
So
that's okay. That needs to be okay.
Absolutely, 100% fine. So you could have, Mervin's Chauvet, who's your alter ego doppelganger, has the same exact life experience from Brooklyn and worked in sales. He doesn't feel the same things you feel because he sees the world through a slightly different lens. So our purpose as creatives is to stand back and commentary and do that so that we can, in a way, this sounds real. You and I both sound like we're like talking from the mountaintop, like Moses.
Right.
Like, this is how it is. But I don't think there's anything wrong with focusing.
We're philosophizing.
Fuck this, man. You think, okay, so you think you're just selling fucking toilet paper? No, in a way, you have an opportunity to inform people who don't think about their lives that this is what's happening in the world. This is how we feel. And then when it feels right to them, they love you, they love the brand and all that other stuff. And fuck the people who say you're selling out and you should be doing this for art. It's like, I said this joke, someone said, like, how do you feel about being vulnerable to sell ads, sell products? I'm like, yeah, if you're really vulnerable, sell products well, you have a nice house. And I'm not saying an artist can't sell books or artwork, but, and your answer was great. You said, this is what you're going to choose to do. Then take all your weapons, be who you are, do it the best.
Yeah, well, it's not worth it if you can't.
Why would you
if you can't give yourself to it?
Why would you put a governor on it? Why would you put a limiter on it? Because you think it's like unethical or that you're wasting your talent. It's almost like punk bands that sell 1 million records are now like sellouts. It's like, isn't that the point?
Well,
I'm sorry.
Also, what I said to him was like, what you do with your time is what you do with your life, and we put a lot of time into this. It'd be a sad life if you never really gave it your everything, like who you were, give your life to it. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you one thing I found really interesting. I've been thinking about most recently was that when we talk about, I take pause because I don't want to like think of myself in the same breath as these people and sound even like we're on a bigger mountaintop.
But
when we talk about the world changers, like the people who at their existence everything changed.
Yes.
Whenever we talk about them, we go, Martin Luther King gave his life to the pursuit of blank, like Dan Wieden gave his life to the pursuit of, or to, Dan Balzer gave his life to helping students be to educating people.
What they're here to do.
If you're not willing to give your life to something, you're giving your life to nothing. And then it's nothing. You die and it's nothing.
I also don't think people realize, they look back at Martin Luther King Jr.'s life, it's like, that shit was fucking hard, man. And they look back at like the founding fathers of the United States who were radicals, who had to deal with being ostracized and persecuted. And it's like, everything looks pretty neat and tidy in retrospect. The pain and suffering and death threats and stress that these people had to go through to achieve, I don't think should be understated.
Yeah. Now, it begs to kind of say that, damn, so you choosing to give your life to advertising? I mean, you can look at it that way. Advertising it affects culture.
You have fucking done that now.
But hold on, it affects culture. It affects humans on a really big level. And so, like, yeah, in a way, I've chosen to use advertising as a medium to give myself to the world. That's it.
I have young kids. Well, they're not so young anymore, but they watch television and they're learning about culture and society from watching a television. Don't think a television commercial exists in a vacuum. It does not exist in a vacuum.
That is preach.
So that's what you're saying, and I'm also saying, like, if this is the career that you're in, if you're listening to this podcast, you're going into or already probably in advertising, you've already crossed that threshold.
Yeah.
At this point, why would you not deal with the vulnerability and challenges that are there, so you can make something of it? I don't know. I'm kind of talking to myself in my past too. I don't think that I was all in the industry when I was
all
younger.
in. Mm-mm. I love that.
I don't think I was.
Yeah,
I'm a little bit more now.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. I remember I was emailing with or texting with Kristen, and she was like, "You want to talk about telling kids not to punch the computer, the printer, and like kick it so that." Other kids can use it because it's panel week and they need it and they're jamming it because they're putting the wrong paper in it and blah, blah. And I was like, it's such a childish thing to and I think I benefited. No, I'm serious. I think I really benefited from being a little bit older and coming into this because I feel like I have a little bit of the maturity to understand its power and its place and my responsibility in it. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, you fresh out of college, that's okay, but you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And there's a recklessness that could work for you. Mm-hmm. But it also is going to...
There's collateral damage.
It's collateral damage.
It's like, it works, but it's a messy way to get there.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting. So you didn't want to talk about that, though, did you?
No, too many young people in the room. Too young. I feel like I'm still young. But...
I don't know if that's shoehorning in something that's not your message, I think that...
Maybe that's what it was.
And I think that there's something about the way you approached this that will probably elevate them to a maturity that they'll start to come to those other conclusions on their own.
Good point.
I would hope.
You are the king of articulation, I tell you.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for talking to me, man. It's always great to catch up. That went quick, didn't it?
Yeah, that's it. It's over.
You want to talk some more?
I can talk forever.
Okay, so listeners, I just cut some stuff out after I said that was it. He says, that it? And I said, yeah. And then we talked about it. Kervins just came up with a name. This is, what would you say it's going to be called? DGMS, the Philosophy Edition.
Yeah, there we go.
The Philosophy Show starring Kervins Chauvet. If you want to reach Kervins, make sure you email him at kervinschauvet@gmail.com. You can always reach me at danspodcast@mac.com. I'm going to put some of the work up on the Facebook page that you should have already liked. Facebook.com/DGMS podcast. And if you're ever out in Portland, I'm sure that Kervins would love to just hear what you have to say about anything, because this guy is a very welcoming, lovely man, as I'm sure you just heard. Thank you so much for listening. Kervins, thanks again, man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Listeners, we'll see you again in 2 weeks. Till then, bye.